You're listening to Pink Lady Presents, only on LA Talk Radio.
I'm gonna live till I die. I'm gonna laugh instead of cry. I'm gonna take the town and turn it upside down. I'm gonna live until I die.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to Pink Lady Presents It Ain't Over Till You Say It's Over, a program filled with fun people who are living their lives well lived. And today, I have a charming gentleman, Mr. David Markham, sitting right beside me here. Hello, David.
Thank you. Hello, Pink. It's very, very good to be here.
I hear a little bit of an accent. Now, where are you from?
Well, actually, the truthful answer is I was born and raised here in Southern California.
Really?
Yeah.
Love the
actually
voice.
Second generation Californian.
Touching
You're
him.
the one.
Yeah,
I am
you're
the
one, right.
And my grandmother, say, for example, was from Oklahoma when it was Indian territory.
Really?
So we've been here a long time.
Wow, but maybe it's your voice. It's so cultured. I thought maybe from England. I mean,
Well,
have you ever done any voiceovers?
only very little. I would love to do more.
Yeah.
I'd love to do more, so here we are.
All of you casting agents,
That's
David
right.
Markham.
That's
David
right,
Markham,
that's
here
right.
he is, in the flesh, right here.
Here we are.
So, David, you're a lover of variety art.
Yes,
Explain that to our wonderful audience who are looking at us today.
Well, they used to call it variety arts, like, say, vaudeville. Vaudeville was variety arts. Closest most of us would ever see it would have been the Ed Sullivan Show.
Yes.
And because that was really just like vaudeville, essentially. In fact, some people called it, instead of video, they called it vaudeo.
Oh, vaudeo. I like
Vaudeo,
that.
yeah, it was the same basic program, and the variety acts typically would have been, say, like jugglers, a lot of circus acts,
Magicians, right?
Magicians, musicians, ventriloquists.
Yes.
Senor Wences, I think, held the record for
that was
being on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Now, I understand you do a little ventriloquism.
Yes, I do.
Like, give me an idea.
Hi, Tink. Hey, it's good to see you. Thinking of Senor Wences. We got in my hand.
Okay. And vaudeville, I know, is your favorite.
It's
Now, why?
hard not-
Why?
Well, I think really the variety factor and having, grown up seeing. Well, say for example, Ed Sullivan, a kid. And there was everybody was on there. The Beatles were on there.
Yes.
But then you also had, say, Senor Wences. So here was, the Beatles, and up next, Senor Wences. And he would come out and
It
or
would be a
Tootsie
variety.
exactly.
Right.
And it was just a real lot of fun. And a lot of very, very talented people came out of vaudeville too, and did acting and what have you.
Well, Joan Rivers.
Sure.
I think started there. I mean, you name the person, and
Yes.
it was he had them on. But what he did was, as a producer director, he had the diversity of the world, so that everybody all over the country, all over the world, saw different people that they liked. I would like a Joan Rivers. Someone else would like an opera star.
Yes.
Someone else would like jazz. I mean, he took that genre of diversity and made it into, an hour program? Mm-hmm. I mean...
Yes,
So-
exactly. And that's what Essential Vaudeville was.
And how did you get into all of this?
Well, a lot of it was, I hate to admit it, but I think television did have an undue influence on me. Besides Ed Sullivan, say, for example, there was, they had a lot of hosted TV shows when I was a kid, like cartoon shows for kids. There
Right.
was Sheriff John.
Yeah.
It was one obvious one. Hobo
Right.
Kelly. They also had then, even when I was starting into high school, they had some of my favorite guys were horror movie hosts.
Oh.
Like Seymour. And I love those guys so much. And then a lot of them did variety acts.
Yes.
Because, say, for example, there was Skipper Frank, and he did ventriloquism, and Tom Hatton did, they called Chalk Talks.
Right.
know,
Oh my God, I
yes.
remember him. Yes.
Yes, there was a lot of them, and almost all of them had some puppets in the background.
Yes, sure.
And
right.
there was Sherry Lewis, and
Oh, she was
and Lamb
fabulous.
Chop, sure.
Lamb
sure.
Chop.
Kukla
oh.
Fran and all them. Well, of course, that goes back to the 30s. I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I remember
You're
that.
right. Yeah. They were very late 30s, or maybe early 40s.
I think
but just
early
the
40s.
very beginning of television.
Right.
Do you remember when Andy Devine hosted a cartoon show with a frog?
Yes, Froggy.
Oh,
Froggy, and he
Froggy.
would plunk your magic
That's
planger,
right.
Froggy.
Right. I had a rubber Froggy that I kept for years.
Yes.
It was like at the last I saw him, I would not have thrown him away. But the last I saw him, he was kind of rotten.
Yeah.
And he was kind of caving in a little
I
bit.
know, but that's the best
But,
kind
uh,
of friend, an old friend. you
That's
know.
right.
I
That's
love-
right.
And Paul Winchell and Jerry Mahoney.
Absolutely.
Edgar,
Edgar Bergen.
Edgar Bergen and Charlie
well,
McCarthy.
he was so huge. People don't really realize how huge he was on the radio. Before there was television, he was hysterically
I didn't
funny.
remember that, really.
And well, also, I think just a few days ago was supposed to have been the anniversary of Mae West being banned from the radio after making double entendre dialogue with Charlie McCarthy.
Are you kidding
No,
me?
I'm not.
Oh my
I
God!
am
I was
not.
like, I wonder what she said. That would have
Well,
been-
suppose what she said was one thing. She said you're made out of wood and you're a yard long. You're all wood. You're yard long. Then she said, well, why don't you come up and play in my wood pile? And
I love it.
and I've heard recordings.
Yeah.
And you hear laughter at places where nobody's saying anything. So I kind of think they were like.
Yeah.
Making gestures or something, which I
Right.
won't do because people can't see us.
In that same period, you had Bell Both, you had Rusty Warren, all of those people that double entendre was their key.
Oh,
Yes.
Well, and even in the W.C. Fields movies, he did a lot of double entendre.
Well,
too.
I just heard. No, I read it that you couldn't say certain words in those days, and if so, he would make up a word that would sound like you couldn't say the bad words, and he would make up. Say someone would hit him in the head, and he would go, darn that thing goes down that mother, the little fella or something, and you knew what he meant, and he would continue, and he would remember saying gibberish words
Right.
as a script.
Sid Caesar was
Yeah.
a master at
Yeah.
that.
Oh,
Yeah.
that guy was a
He
genius.
made up whole languages.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
he was so good at that, and I forgot there was a term for that. But yeah, he could imitate these languages, and it sounded like he was speaking, but it wasn't. It was
No,
just it was
but he would
gibberish.
remember some
Right.
of the words
So that
of
he
the
could
gibberish
use them again.
Again,
He
right.
knew what they were.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah. Well, he was, like I said, a genius, definitely.
Now,
Yes.
are you also an actor? I mean,
Yes.
I would think that you're definitely now. Like what have you been playing in? That's a that's a little bit of an entendre there. Okay,
That's right. What I'm about.
Yeah.
Wow. See, there again. Wow.
Wow.
See, just the way you say it. Well, I did a lot of things on stage and things on TV and movies. And a lot of it, though, I have to, again, confess, they was because of doing variety arts. And one of the biggest ones was that got me the most gigs was sword swallowing. It was the sword swallowing.
we're going to see that soon.
That's right. Yes. So stay tuned for
Now,
sword
how did
swallowing.
you ever? I mean, really and truly, David.
Sure.
How did you ever think of sword swallowing?
Well,
I mean,
I'll tell you, and because one of the first things I ever did, variety arts wise, was magic. And there was a guy again, a TV show host. There was a couple of kid shows. The one was the big one was Chuck Jones, the Magic Man.
Oh.
Yeah, he's still around. He's still performing, as far as I know. And but he had a show, and he would do magic, and he would say, if you kids are interested in magic, go to Burt Wheeler's Magic, or Burt Wheeler, another guy from vaudeville.
Oh my
You know,
God, that's
and
right.
yes, and early movies too, Burt Wheeler. But anyway, so I would, Mama, Chuck Jones says I should go to, Burt Wheeler, and we would go down. That's how I talked then. It was embarrassing. And so I learned to do magic. So I learned to do magic, and then around when there was a rock band called Kiss, and one of the guys would do this fire eater stunt, which I'd say don't do. I mean, really
not
don't
do it.
Yeah, ever do it, because it's even if you don't burn yourself up, it actually turns out to be very, very carcinogenic. So we don't want that
Right.
at all. So
Thank you.
don't do that. Yes. But anyway, and so I thought, well, fire eating. I wonder if I could learn that, because also Lon Chaney signed the movies, and Lon Chaney Senior was a vaudevillian. He did he was like a song and dance, a hoofer.
Who
And he
was
would
it? Lon Chaney?
Chaney.
Chaney Senior.
way.
Yes.
Senior.
Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't
senior.
know that.
Yeah, he was a tap dancer. Oh yeah. But
Wow.
anyway, so and I remember seeing him. He did fire eating on this movie called West of Zanzibar. He was looking at it. It was like, oh. But anyway, so we'll add Burt Wiener's doggone it if there isn't a little booklet about fire eating. And in the fire eating booklet, it has like about a paragraph at the most about sword swallowing. Sword swallowing can be accomplished by overcoming the gag reflex. Overcome the gag reflex and you can swallow swords. Wouldn't it be neat if I could do that?
Right. Oh,
So
my
to
God.
expand my repertoire, but of course it's a little more difficult than that.
Well, we're going to see that in a minute. But first, I want everybody to hear and see a tenor ukulele. I know.
Yeah.
Look at that, everybody. Is that not gorgeous?
Thank you.
And not only that, he can play it.
And what is the difference between a tenor and what is the other kind? Is it
Okay.
an alto ukulele?
Well, actually, there's three basic sizes. The one that everybody associates, they call a soprano. It's smaller. Then they make a concert one, kind of medium, and then the tenor one. And really, it's just the neck is longer and the body is slightly bigger. Now, this one I also have a lower top string. This G string is. Talking about double entendre.
Yes,
It's
A lower
Lower
G
G
string.
string.
I heard it.
Woo!
I
Yeah.
heard it.
That's right, and I really like that. low G
Yeah.
So, but no, so it will have a slightly different sound, but it's actually very, very common for guys
Okay.
to use that.
We're ready.
We're ready.
Okay.
Are you ready? And this is for you. 5'2", eyes are blue. Oh, what 5'2" can do. Anybody see my girl? Turned up nose, turned down nose. She's a flapper with lows. Anybody seen my girl? Now if you have seen a beauty queen, all wrapped in fur, diamond rings and all those eggs, you can bet it ain't her. Would she move? Could she move? Oh man, I'm telling you, anybody seen my girl? Now if you have seen a beauty queen, all wrapped in pearl, diamond rings and all say, you can bet that it ain't her. Would she move? Could she move? Oh man, I'm telling you, anybody seen my girl?
Woo! Yes! I love it. I love it.
Did Tiny Tim play a ukulele?
Yes, and he played the soprano size.
Soprano, yeah.
Oh.
And actually, you hear him and he's drumming, and he's not doing a real lot with the ukulele. But again, and of course, vocally, I guess we're about the polar opposite
Yes,
because he
yes.
was.
He was up high.
Yeah, he was
Very,
always
yeah.
he sang
Falsetto,
he sang
yeah.
falsetto.
Yes.
And the story on that was, as a kid, he was also enamored with the vaudeville singers and all
Right.
those old songs, and they, again, the tenor was the most popular one then, as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought, well, I can do that too. I'll just, he started singing falsetto, and then developed this, wild act. But I guess he was an absolute authority on music of the vaudeville era. And the recordings, like he knew all the recordings,
Yeah.
everything. Crazy.
Well, now, okay, this is a first. We need a drum roll. Da-da-da-da-da-da, drum roll. We are going to see Mr. David Markham do his sword swallower act. He also did this in the Emmy Award series Carnival.
That's right, Carnival.
So, I am ready to see this, I think.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure I'm ready to see this.
Well, you know what? I can never see it because I'm always looking
Yeah,
up.
yeah. Oh, that's
I
fabulous.
said.
Okay, let's do it so that our audience can see it. One
Okay.
second. Stay right over here, because there's a camera there.
Okay. Now, first, let me do a taste test.
Oh,
Actually, that's pretty good.
it's really good. Do you coat that with anything?
Well, now I am.
Okay.
Oh, if I will be banned, just like Mae West. But you know what? I got to say, that tastes so good, just like my mama used to make, only better. But so
Okay.
what we're going to do is I'm going to swallow the sword,
Right.
and then I will bow like this,
Okay.
and then you will extract the
Extract it.
sword
Right out.
from my throat.
From your throat.
Yes, and at that precise instant,
Yes.
you will become the one and only true Queen of England.
There you go. I'm
That's
the
right.
true
Yeah.
one.
Oh yeah, you will
Not
see it,
false.
Yeah.
True.
No,
Yeah.
Not like these others. You know, the pretenders. We'll just call them charlatan, being too strong
Yes,
a word. I think.
definitely. I'm
But, you
ready.
know, the sword and the stone. Forget it. It's the.
I'm ready for my
Sword on
big,
it.
big thing.
All
Forget
right.
the sword. I'm ready for my big
All
thing.
right then. Here we go.
Oh
There it
my God!
Behold the Queen of England.
Oh
Your
my!
Majesty.
David. Woo! I think I'm okay.
I can just wait for the next time your kids and your grandkids
know.
say, "What have you been up to lately?" Well, I've been extracting swords from sword swallowers.
There you go.
There you go.
Well, and now you have the pictures to prove it.
Yes,
I do.
not just any sword swallower,
Yeah.
but David
But
Markham,
David
That's right.
Markham.
the sword swallower.
Right, direct from Carnival.
Carnival. Well, we have to have you on again
Well, I
because
look
we
forward
want to
to that.
do. We want to have you do some magic the next time.
Okay.
And we will have that. And ladies and gentlemen, you have to remember, this is a very diverse show, from
Right.
sword swallower to a singer to
To
variety act.
43-year-old macaw
Right.
parrots,
To
right?
yeah. I mean,
But
it's like
please let us know
Yeah.
when you're going to be appearing so that we can let our audience know and they can come and support you.
right.
Well, the only
We
thing
all
is-
do much better with an audience.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I think so.
Right. So if you're going to be somewhere, just
Right.
call me up.
Okay.
And then that next week when
Right.
I'm on the TV show, I will say, by the way, David Markham is performing
Oh.
at,
Right.
and
Thank you.
just
Or
tell
we'll
me
be
that.
on television or whatever the case may be. We love to do that, and we've had many, many people, 50 shows so far. And whenever we can, we want to send people
Right.
their way.
Thank you very much.
And I thank you for being with us today.
My pleasure.
We will be right back. Are back with a gigantic splash because I am sitting with a delightful lady who definitely is what I call a woman of all seasons and reasons, Rosalind Kahn.
Oh, thank
Hello.
you. Hello, sweetie. It's so good to see you here.
Thank you. Thank you. You can tell we're color coordinated here.
Oh, yes,
I mean,
yes,
look
yes.
at this. I don't let anyone in unless we're color coordinated. First of all, I want to welcome you to the show. Rosalind, I met you at a conference. Ravi Mortar again.
Yep.
Ravi Mortar
Ravi's
is a
name
dear
keeps
friend.
coming up.
Well, because she's a dear friend of all of ours, and she puts people together.
Oh my God, she
And
is the world's
she is
connector.
just fabulous, and she has definitely connected us with some very wonderful people like yourself. Rosalind, where do we begin with you? I know, first of all, 18 years as a public educator, college professor, correct?
That is correct.
How did we get there? How did we get there?
It's an
Practice.
Practice.
Right?
You know, you got to practice until you get perfect. You know, I began an organization called Toastmasters, and
I love Toastmasters.
yes, I began at Toastmasters, and I hit this level of plateau, and you know, I decided it was so much fun that I would go teach it in the college classroom. And they say if you don't get
Oh.
what you want the first time, you keep trying.
That's
and trying
right.
And trying
That's right.
And trying. So it
What
took-
was the name of your Toastmaster group?
I was in a group called The Adventures, which is the story of my life. I love taking
I
adventures.
love it. I belong to the Warner Center Toastmasters, Rose Lane.
Oh, I know Rose Lane. She and
Yeah.
I go way back when
Rose
I was...
Lane is in her 90s, and she's like in her 40s.
Oh,
Fabulous.
my God. I was in Toastmasters back when Rose Lane was in Toastmasters. No one stays in Toastmasters that long, but I was in Toastmasters about as long as I've been teaching, and I've just gone back.
And now you're teaching, tell us what.
I teach the art of public speaking. Imagine that. You know,
Yeah.
a professional
Surprise.
speaker teaching public speaking. I teach at Los Angeles City College, and I teach at Los Angeles Mission College. I teach a high school class there. And it's amazing to see these people who are deathly afraid of speaking come out and do amazing talks. It's just beautiful. seeing
Well,
the
I remember
transformation.
that when I walked into, it was Warner Center Toastmasters, and I had just gone through a loss of a spouse. And they said, if you want to get out there, go to Toastmasters. And I said, okay. So I went, and lovely Rose Lane, I mean, she was the head of it. And you need someone who has heart. You just do to be the president of a Toastmaster club. And she welcomed me, and she said, and why are you here? She said, because I'm listening and watching you, and you're kind of out there already. And I said, well, I'm here to better what I do. Not so much that I have to learn, I want to better. And she said, you got the right place. And I'll never forget that. But how did you get to that point, Rosalind? Were you always an outgoing person or what?
Well, my father said that I was never shy. And so when I graduated college, he says, well, what you really need to do is you need to go to this group called Toastmasters. And I began in a group called in San Diego called the Hard Hats. And I still, every time I go down to San Diego, I go back and visit the Hard Hats. And, you know, most people stay for a year, and I stayed for close to several decades
Oh, wow. Now, where were you brought up?
in San Diego.
So you're a Californian?
I'm a California native.
We have had on, in the last few shows, native Californians, which you do not find anywhere.
Wow.
I know. So we have another one here, so we're blessed. So tell me about when you started it, what was interesting about some of the people that you helped?
In Toastmasters?
Yes.
Well, it was amazing in Toastmasters because it's very much you're helping other people and they're going ahead and helping you. And I remember in San Diego I just began, but it was really when I came to Los Angeles I began taking these leadership roles. And so I was in Toastmasters back when they had defense was still in the San Fernando Valley.
Oh,
back,
really? Wow.
You know,
That's a while
going
ago.
back many
Yes,
years
many
ago.
years.
And I was working with people from Rocketdyne and Teledyne and other companies, and it was interesting, motivating and inspiring these people to get out and do something as they
Right.
knew their jobs were on the line and that they were going ahead and losing their lives. I remember different people encouraging and motivating them to get into the art of public speaking, and now they've gone into retirement and they're no longer in the organization. But the stories that really resonate with me are this one period in my life where I had an accident, and during this accident, I walked into school with this big thing on my arm, and I said, if I can stand here in front of you and teach you public speaking, then anybody in this classroom can become a winner. And it was in that year I turned 3 students into champions.
Wow. Wow.
You know, just talking about the power of the mindset, and at this one school, it was like God Bless America, that I called them on the phone, and they said, well, we'll hold the class for you. We'll get a substitute. Well, this other college, named to be nameless, decided it was the time they were going to let me go. And this college was going to find someone else to fill in for me. And so when I got in there that day and I looked at them, it was 3 months later, there was an interdisciplinary contest, and my students came in.
What do you mean by that? A what contest?
Interdisciplinary.
What does that mean?
All the different classes from different backgrounds could compete in this contest.
Okay.
And my students came in 2nd and 3rd. So I went to the other school I worked at, Santa Monica College, and I said, one of you is going to be a champion in this class. And it went on for 2 to 3 years. But the amazing thing was, it was the ESL students were the ones who...
And what does that mean?
I'm sorry. English as
we have an odd... They're watching us, but we really have to tell them what it means.
Oh, well, it's good that you're here to help me out. So their English is a second language, and they say what you don't know, they try harder.
Okay.
And I had a student give a speech on the seasons and how during the seasons people get depressed and they get sad. And now there's this whole situation about the change of the seasons. There was another student of mine who was an Italian who was an artist. And still to this day, I still continue to remain in contact with
them. I love
them.
that.
And so that's the beauty of teaching. I recently talked to one of my students, and he was so astonished to hear from me. I have students who are in the field of art, in the field of music, entertainment, fashion, and it's
and you got them out there, so to speak.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
If I can just jump in for 1 second. 3 years ago, we got a call from somebody saying, we would like to take Toastmasters to some veterans. Is there any suggestion? And we brought them to New Directions, where people have a drug and alcohol rehab program, and started a program that I believe is still going strong.
Right.
And people couldn't imagine that they could, after going through what they had been through, stand up and speak and command the attention of everyone. It was wonderful to watch.
Wow.
Wonderful to watch.
No, I've actually gone and presented at that group, the New Directions. They're a really powerful group of people.
Yes, they are.
One of my TED Talks, I was working on revising this thing and came and had spent many hours and just stood up and they all clapped and applauded and they were so proud, and their manager, their leader said, they never sit down and just listen. You must have really captivated their attention to get them to just sit and just
now,
listen.
I'm curious. When did you write your first book? Was it before TEDx that you got into it, or after?
I think it was after I did the TEDx. I had this...
Okay, I'd like you to explain to everybody, because I had to look it up. What is TEDx?
Okay, TED is Technology, Education, and Design. It was developed back, I believe, in the 80s or so. There was a researcher, and he wanted to bring all these wealthy, well-to-do people together to give these talks on where they thought the future was going. There was a gentleman that came in later on, and he opened it up and he said it shouldn't just be the rich and the famous that get the access to this. We should bring it up to everyone. And that's when the TEDx organization actually came to be.
Wow, how many years ago was that about? Quite a while.
Quite a while ago. The numbers get confused in my mind right now. I think in 85 or something like that.
And how did you get involved, though?
Well, I was involved in an organization called the American Society of Training and Development, and there was a friend of mine who called me one day and he said, there's a TED Talk that's going ahead and happening. I'd like you to come. And he invited me out to this thing in Pasadena, and I sat there, and in the audience, I could tell you 10 or 15 of those speeches, I said, I'm going to be on that stage. I will be on that stage one day. And
you did.
And I
How
did.
long did it take you before you got on that stage?
Well, I actually managed to go to a workshop, and I probably trained about 10 people to get on the TED stage. And after that, one day I said, after a Friday night in traffic, training someone, I said, no, it's my turn. And I made it happen.
Wow. What was your first speech?
The first speech was called Language Comes to Life, and it was a story about these students I had in the college classroom and how taking them to the theater changed the way that they learn the English language. And it was almost funny that at the time, I had my students going out and doing service learning, and just yesterday I was at the Covenant House with my Coach Masters group doing some volunteer work,
Right.
and I was saying, many years ago my students came and volunteered here, and never ever had I been to the Covenant House to see what they do.
Wow. And then you did.
And I did yesterday. We were making holiday cards and holiday gifts, and it's
Oh.
interesting how that circle, you know.
And what is the Covenant House?
The Covenant House is an incredible organization. When kids age out of foster care at the age of 18 and they're just thrown out on the street, they don't often have the skill set to do what they need to go ahead and do.
Wow.
And so what this organization does is they provide them a place of housing. They have career centers and training classes, and they have to show up for breakfast. They have to go to this
Oh.
career. If they go out and work, the organization goes ahead and saves their money up. So when it's time to go, there are people who've made up to $40,000 that they've collected in the time that they're there.
Oh, wow.
And they're doing an amazing thing, and they have a call to people
Did
who
you
have
ever hear
different
of that?
Mhm.
I've never heard of
Yeah.
it. Wow,
yeah,
that's
different
fabulous.
talents that they can go and volunteer to dedicate
Oh.
their services to help them out. And we were there
Yeah.
just
One-
yesterday.
One of the programs that Donna Deutschman at Homes for Families does
Right.
is to teach people how to manage their money so they can not only get a home, but keep it. But a lot of people can get the home, but then they lose it because they don't know how to manage their
Right.
money.
And they,
So
and they
that
teach
sort
them
of
how to
thing.
do
Yeah.
that.
Right. No, it's an incredible skill. They say a lot of people that go ahead and win $1 million basically do the same thing. They basically throw it all away.
Right.
What is Teen Trep Company?
The Teen Trep Company is an organization I got together and I worked with that helped young teens promote their lives and people who were in talents, and they were motivated and inspiring them. I'm not sure where they're at today because the people aren't there, but they had 4 different entrepreneurs come on the stage and go ahead and give talks. One of
Yeah.
them was a lady who was going ahead and talking about domestic violence. 2 of them were entrepreneurs in production, finance, and other
Right.
the gaming industry. And we had the opportunity to get up on a stage and tell them what it was about and what that experience was like and how to make it happen.
You must have changed a lot of lives through all this coaching that you've done. What do you need to have in a person that can help you motivate them to go on to do other and bigger things?
Well, I think the big thing is empowering young people to believe that they have a purpose, to believe that they can do things, and if they simply set their mind in motion and set up a plan with goals and markers of what they're going to go ahead and do. And the key is having that person that you can look up to, that person who can mentor you, who can guide you. And every great person has a mentor of that person that they can
Right.
look up to, and finding the person that's right for you, because not every person is that symbiosis that you feel that connection with.
Well, for instance, now, if someone came to you and said, look, say someone, I don't know, 17, 18, and said, I've always been shy all my life, but I have a chance. I just graduated high school. I'm going to college. I want to be able to fit in, but I want to do more.
Right.
What's the first thing you would say to them?
Well, I think the first thing I would say to them is, what's your interest? What makes your heart sing? What makes you truly happiest? Because if you follow what your heart's passion is, it's easier to take off and
Right.
get to that place.
Because that's where you want to be.
Because that's where you want to be. I
Right.
mean, we can't just go out and do anything. You got to have a purpose, and the purpose goes ahead and connects to the heart and what resonates with the heart.
I'd like to segue into a video that we have on the language that you did for TEDx. So we're going to see that video right now.
Have you ever thrown a pebble into a pond and watched the circles grow wider and wider? It doesn't matter the size or the weight or even the toss. It all brings the same change it goes ahead and creates in our world. Imagine if we thought about that pond as our life. And we put that person who threw the rock as each and every one of you in this audience has the ability to change our world. Simply because you set your mind and you say, I can do it. Today, I want to tell you about 3 individuals who made a slight change in the way they did things, and they transformed our world. How many of you in this audience are familiar with Emily Davidson? Anybody know her name? Can I see by show of hands? Well, I don't see any hands out there. Let me tell you about Emily. Emily Davidson was a lady from the 1900s, and she was a suffrage. She believed the woman's right to vote was critically important, and the Kingston Derby was her stage to make this happen. So it's kind of sad in today's world that most people don't even take the right to vote as something important, and they don't bother voting. But if it wasn't for what Emily had done, many of you in this room would not even have the right to vote. So let me take you back and tell you about Emily. See, Emily was around in 1906. She would do...
Rosalind, when I saw this particular video, I was just overwhelmed with the way you commandeer your audience. I mean, you came on, you owned the stage. And I feel that if you can do that, when I do some of my motivational speaking, I know that if I walk out within 10 seconds or less, I need to own that audience.
Right.
And it's the way we walk,
Right.
it's the way we come out. Right away, they get the
Right.
energy that's coming from us, and that we know what we're talking about. Tell me, the Stephanie or Stephen Marks and Val Esther, there's a program that you do for the UN with women and all that. Well, what is that all about?
Well, I was working with this lady, Stephanie Marks, and she had a program where she was working on getting people on the UN stage, and she wanted to find people that had a mission, had a purpose, and they had a message that they wanted to get out to the world stage. And we are still in the process of working together to get that funding together to make it happen.
What type of a message?
It's people who cared about children, people who cared about poverty. The UN has 16 different demarcations of programs that go for the homeless, that go for the impoverished youth, that go for the seniors, that address all these issues, and helping people out to take those messages and make them present to the world so the people at the UN can take them and make them happen.
And how is it going, the program?
Well, Stephanie is a very extraordinarily busy person. She works with a lot of people in the finance industry, and we've been working on this for several years, and I still keep putting out calls to her. But you were talking about that presence and how to command the stage, and I'd like to talk about that for a second. Because when I did that speech, a lot of people think you make it look so easy. That speech was written over 30 times and probably given, over just as many times. And when you give a speech, it really goes ahead and it comes from the heart.
That's
It's not memorized, it's coming. I recently saw you give a speech, and we were up in the women's with Kathleen Ronald.
Was it? Yes. Oh yeah. The Wish Foundation.
The Wish Foundation.
Yeah.
And I saw that same sense in you.
Thank you.
When you got up on the stage and you talked about what you wanted to give to these women and what you wanted to present and how it was really coming from your heart. And even though you had a piece of paper, I felt that same sense. I felt that same sense that you had in yourself. And so when we talk to people, the average person spends less than 2 hours going ahead and putting a speech together.
Right.
But it takes that much time to go ahead and do it. You've got to put in that time, that practice, and that preparation.
So everyone will think, well, look how they're doing it. That's easy. No, not easy. Not easy. And that's another thing that Toastmasters does do.
Right.
It does give you the feeling that, I know you have 10 speeches, it is, the beginning. And I remember going up for my first one, and literally I was like, I know I can do this because I
Right.
do this all the time.
Right.
But it's constructed to make it so that everybody can get something from what you're saying, no matter what it is. So it's a little different than just getting up and talking.
Right.
You also wrote a book, first book, Random Acts of Kindness Are Changing the World. Tell us about that.
Well, it's interesting. When I had done my first TED Talk, the person, when I began working in the TED, I worked with an organizer, and he gifted me 6 months of a coaching. And one of the things he had me do was to write down a list of goals. And on that goals was to write a book. And I didn't know what this book was going to be about, but one day this idea came to me. I read a book by Tony Hsieh, and the book was Passion, Profits, and Purpose. And in this book, he talked about going out and doing random acts of kindness.
Oh, I like that.
And so he had an organization that was Zappos Shoe Company that was off in Las Vegas. And I went to go visit this place, and I saw their wall with all their different random acts of kindness. And I got to sit in this chair and be queen for the day. And I just fell in love with the idea. So I decided to take this back to my students. Well, what's today's average student like? They work 35 hours a week. They've got their parents, their grandparents, this, that, and the other,
Right.
and there's never enough time in the day. And I said, what if I could motivate and inspire my students to do these random acts of kindness? And when they started going ahead and doing these
Right.
stories dropped you in your feet.
I love it.
You know, there was a person who said they'd stop on the side of the freeway and they'd see this lady, and one day they said, here, I don't want the flowers, but here, just go ahead and keep the money. Or going ahead and helping the homeless person outside the Starbucks, and just spending the time and going ahead and
Thinking
talk.
of other people besides yourself.
Right,
Yeah.
and it was just a beautiful book, a collection of all these different
Just
stories
I love that.
that were put together.
And then you wrote your second book, which is on now. It's Roses,
Dogs and Roses.
Dogs and Roses. And it's a little dog as you're seeing it now, and he's adorable. Is that your dog?
No,
Oh,
that's
so cute,
he's
though.
he's an adorable dog. I had a friend of mine who's resting in heaven, and
Oh.
he had picked out this cover picture, a stock photo, and he said, "You need this picture with
Oh,
the
yeah.
dog with the heart-shaped
Oh yeah,
glasses
it was
and the
adorable,
roses."
just darling. Now, what is that about?
Well, it's a completely entirely different
I
book.
know.
Before somebody was talking about pictures. I don't know where pictures came up, but I think maybe in the room. And we were talking about pictures, and I absolutely love taking pictures. So this is a book of my two favorite passions, dogs and roses.
Okay.
And it's how to overcome stress and anxiety in today's troubled times. And so there's beautiful pictures of dogs and roses. And in this book, it's dedicated to a dog I had growing up in San Diego, which a dog called, thinking of a current dog I have. Her name was Heidi.
Oh.
Heidi was the dog that we had growing up, and she was a collie. We just lost a dog in the last year, and her name was Holly, and I kept thinking about her because she lived to be nearly 17 years old.
What
and
kind
at
of a
the-
dog?
Holly was a German Shepherd,
Wow.
a
only
terrier shepherd.
17.
and
Wow.
and
That's
the
old. And
yeah.
dog years, that's old.
yeah. So that my heart was being torn on those two dogs, and the one dog's name came up. But the important thing is, I decided to dedicate part of the money to veterans because I believe that veterans don't get a fair shake in our world.
Thank you.
And when I was on a cruise, I met a veteran, and he told me that when he went to war and had to go back, the people who had dogs who couldn't take care of them, their dogs were killed, and I felt really bad for that.
Oh, wow.
And so I decided that I wanted to dedicate part of the funds to an organization. There's an organization I support. It's called Soldiers and Dogs. It's out of the Midwest.
Oh, did you ever hear of that, Doug? Wow, I love that.
And they work to train veterans' dogs so that when they come back, that they can have a dog as their mate to help them out.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
I love that. Is there one here in L.A.? Or?
There's not one here in LA. There's a small organization that's basically in the Midwest. And the last time I was talking to them, they said they were doing pretty well. They had lots of dogs, and they were very happy with the support that I was giving to them.
Yeah, one of the programs that we talked about
Yeah.
is based in Menifee, and it's the Canine Support Team.
Right, exactly.
We work closely with them.
We went down there to see the dog.
The breeders breed the dogs, and then they're given to homes for 18 months, and
Right.
they're sent to
Right.
prison, the men's and women's prison in Corona and Chino.
Right.
And they're specialized trained for another 4 months, and then given to veterans to help them with PTSD and equilibrium and other
Fabulous.
problems.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow. That's
just-
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So when did that book come out?
That book came out just a year ago. It was just in 17. It just came
Now,
out.
if someone wants to buy those books, where do they go to buy them?
Well, the best place you can go is you can go to Amazon.
Amazon.
They're available on Amazon, and
Under
they're-
what name?
You want to put Rosalind Kahn, Rosalyn. Last name is Kahn, and you want to make sure that you put Dogs and Roses: How to Reduce Stress and Anxiety in Today's Troubled Times.
Okay.
And if they don't get it, and a
Right.
lot of times people don't have the ability at the time to write down the address, send an email to pinkladypresents.com. You can see her email address. We'll gladly forward it to you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I want to ask you a question that's kind of funny, maybe off the beat in a way. Because we tend to talk about the younger generation in promoting their skills to be what they want in the future. A lot of us, because of the change in the way we're living now and how we're eating and taking care of ourselves, are living longer.
Right.
So say there's someone of an age that is not working now, and say they're in their 70s, even 80s. They want to continue to do things out there, but they're a little gun shy, if you know what I mean, to talking to some people. How would you go about telling them how to speak out and how to, it's like coaching, and you look at them, wait a minute now, they don't need it, but a lot do, because I find a lot of an age that do 60 and up. What would you look for and say to them?
Well, the first thing I said is everyone has a story in their heart and their
Yes.
soul. And we never know what the words you say, whose life you can change. And
Right.
I recall, on fingers of all the different friends that I have that are 20 to 30, 40 years older than I am. And those have always been people who are my best friends. And I say, find a group and a purpose. There's many programs that match youngsters, young kids with seniors, and they get the two of them interacting
Correct,
and
together.
working with one another. And I'd say find that passion of what it is to you. And then I'd suggest go to a Toastmaster group, because Toastmasters is an incredible, amazing organization that helps people with the art of speaking, that really people can meet in all sorts of different places.
And not only that, when you say the Toastmasters is the place to go, what they do is the first thing Rose Lane had said to me was, do your speech.
Right.
We're not here, and that's the most important thing, to criticize you.
Right.
We don't do that.
Right.
What we're doing is molding a future speaker, someone who can get out there and do anything afterwards. But if I can remember, I'm trying to think, I think the first speech that I did was,
Your icebreaker.
my icebreaker.
Right.
And after it was over, each one, would say something.
Right.
Not one person was negative. Not one. It was always, Pink, you could just do that, and it would make you feel better on the next few sentences that you. It was completely different than someone negatively saying something, because I think that takes you down right from the beginning.
Exactly.
So, who are the people that you like to coach the most?
Well, I think the people that I like to coach the most are the ones who are most dedicated and driven, that it's not, you're chasing them down. So many times you find people who have these dreams, I want to get up on the stage, and we had an appointment. Do you remember the appointment that we had? Can we get back to that? And they're always putting it together. It's
That moment, and this moment that we're going to do right now is called Breaking. And I want the audience to see exactly what they're going to see right now, and then we'll talk about it.
Okay.
I'm a teacher at Los Angeles City College, where I teach English to students who not only come from different countries, cultures, backgrounds, but educational upbringings. And what I found is at the end of every semester, I have the most amazing stories. Los Angeles City College is extremely lucky to have a phenomenal theater department. And when I bring my students to the theater, they're drawn into the stories. They're suddenly able to follow the sequence, and they yearn to find out what those stories mean. It's as if the lesson that I brought in to teach them has turned into an excitement, it's turned into a passion, and it drives them onward. They not only try to strive to understand what those stories mean, but they decide at that moment they want more. They want to become regular theater goers. Isn't it amazing what the theater arts can do to transform the way that we learn, taking away our fears and putting in pleasure in its place? To me, that's what the theater does for my students. A few years back, I took my students to see 12 Angry Men. But before we got to the show, we watched a video in my class. Due to time, we couldn't see the end of it. I was startled. The next class, a number of my students had gone out to see the end. They wanted to see the climax of actually what happened. And when we went to see the theater performance, there was one student who wasn't simply satisfied with the regular performance. She wanted to go back to the original production. You see, learning has a certain benefit. It drives people to not only want to understand, but put the pieces together because of the drama.
Rosalind, you say, if you throw a pebble in the pond, take it from there.
If you throw a pebble and you throw it into the pond, you can watch as these circles go round and round and round. But if you pick up this pebble, imagine if this pebble was each and every one of you in the audience. And think about the ways that you could take the message that you've heard in today's show and put it into your life, because all of us are put into this life with a purpose. I heard a politician say today that when you look at a homeless person on the street, remember one day, way back long ago, there was a child with dreams and imaginations and hopes and sorrows and things they wanted to accomplish. But every one of us has that ability to take what they hear from the show and make it become a reality. But it all depends on you taking that first step.
Rosalind Kahn, motivational speaker, author, coach, a diverse woman who helps out others to have a life, to keep a life, or to get a life. Rosalind Kahn, God bless you. You're just
so
precious.
much. Thank you.
Thank you for watching our show. Each and every one of you out there, have a beautiful life. And remember, it's not just your life, it's the lives that you touch. God bless.
God bless. Thank you.
Bye, folks.
You're listening to Pink Lady Presents, only on LA Talk Radio.